Okay. Hey, Venemegas. Welcome aboard. Good to be here. It is Tuesday. No, Tuesday, Thursday. Where is my brain? It is Thursday. I wanted to kind of continue. I mentioned at the end of when we looked at Vaults of Pandius, which was that was on Tuesday. I think maybe that's why I had Tuesday on the brain. I liked some of the stuff we saw in this Overland Movement article, but I mentioned it felt like a lot more than I could foresee wanting to use for myself. No shade. If you can, if this the amount of crunch that this article is giving you is right up your alley, then kudos to you. But I think we can probably peel back some of the stuff and still get a good amount of utility without maybe having to get so crunchy. One thing I appreciate, and I mentioned this during that stream, was how you can get this vocabulary which both has a fictional meaning but also has a mechanical meaning, and they're kind of both the same. That you could say in the fiction, okay, they point you towards and I'm going to use a couple of words here, they point you towards a trail. And when you use that term, a trail, I think in our minds we have an idea of what that means in our imaginations, but that it also has, if you write it down in your notes or when you say it, it also has a mechanical meaning. Like, it is a trail, therefore it has these characteristics, and you can share as much or as little of that as with your players. I'm just opening the window here. It's just a little bit hot. Got a little bit hot all of a sudden. You can share as much or as little as your players as your style, but that you'll know that it being a trail means that there has certain characteristics which it shares with other trails. Doesn't mean they all look the same, but they eventually share those same characteristics. Or if you then say, oh, you've stumbled upon a road, oh, it's a road, which means something fictionally, but also means something mechanically, and it shares some characteristics. And you can compare and contrast the two, so that when you're doing your prep, rather, you can use that as a keyword or a trait, if you will, that then points you and says, okay, it's a trail. If I look at that on my hex map or my regular map or whatever, and I say, oh, this is a trail, then it tells me a bunch of things about it. It's not just the name I'm using, and now I got to figure out all these other ways to describe it or how it works in my systems. Like, no, it's a trail. So it follows these kind of trail bits. So that was really interesting. Now, in the article, they give a bunch of, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 what they would call, I guess they call travel routes. Now, one of them's off-road, so it's not a trail at all. It's the lack of a trail. You are basically bushwhacking around, and that's fine. I'm going to, or trailblazing maybe is a better word. I'm going to ignore that one for the moment, because that's kind of our default anyway. I think when we're hex crawling, I think we tend to look at it, well, if you're not following any kind of trail, you're just kind of wandering out in the wilderness, you're essentially doing this kind of off-roads or sort of trailblazing anyway. So in terms of actual trail types, they have a few. Now, I don't know if it's a Mystara thing. I'm not sure if it's just how they do it, but just for me, they're the verbiage they use and kind of how they're describing just doesn't match up to me. When they talk about trails being multiple widths wide, of horse widths, and that you could have all these amenities, and that's off a trail, part of my brain just goes, huh? And I think it's just because when I think of a trail, I think of when you're hiking or you're in the park or something, you have a trail. You're not going to find, a good trail is not one that would be, that's the same as an unpaved road, maybe, or that has, certainly not wide enough for 6 horses abreast. I mean, that is, to me, I look at a good trail as being one that's very clear, maybe follows. I guess there are probably different things. It probably depends. Like, I'm not a mountaineer kind of hiker. I'm a day hiker. I mean, I'm not a camping hiker. I don't hike the Appalachian Trail or something where I'm doing multiple days. We do day hikes. I think when we look at what a good trail is, it would be one that is is clear itself, kind of debris. It's well maintained and it's easy to follow. Hey, Ian, those are what I would think of for a trail. It doesn't have to be particularly wide. And in fact, when I think of a trail, I don't think really it being very wide at all. Certainly, I think you can definitely find some. It might be interesting to look at different things in the world when they talk about trails. I actually have a trail map. Things I should have thought about a few minutes ago. Let me see if I can dig it up real quick because I had one. I don't know what I did with it. If it's super handy, I'll find it in a minute. I do want to actually use it as a model for something I'm working on, but I don't think I have it. Unfortunately, I don't think it's quite in my grasp. Unless no, it's not one of the things I have right here. Unfortunate, because it was basically somebody had left behind. It was like a little hiking sort of little guidebook thing, but it was actually very cool. Yeah, very cool. I'm just looking around all around to see if I just happen to be under my desk or anywhere, because I have some books under my desk because I reference them often enough, and I'm checking to see if it's there. But I don't think it is, so I'll have to find it for later. Any case, they had multiple things, trails and such, and it might be a fun thing. But we'll skip over that. So I'm going to diverge right away from the classifications here because I want to use trails. I want to be a little bit more specific with how I use some of these terms. So I came up with my terms already, and these might change, of course, but I thought they'd be a good starting point anyway. So I have trails right there, and then I have tracks. As in, someone says like it's a cart track. There's a goat track leading up there. I don't know. I think of track. Maybe track is not as good a word as trail. We could probably go and look at that. And then road would be the last one. So we can think of 3 levels of these paths. Let me just see. What does it say? A mark or section of marks, a path, route, or course indicated by such marks. So yeah, an old wagon track. Following the track of an airplane on radar. Well, not so much that one. What's Collins Dictionary? Cambridge Dictionary. Path or rough road. Yeah, see that actually makes sense to me. Dirt unmanned. Yeah, I feel like that's what I mean. I guess all. Oh well, so many things are made of soil, but I guess that would be a good thing. So okay, so we can put some characteristics down. So trails are unpaved. Track is also unpaved. Road can be, paved or unpaved. So if we want to have, I don't mind this minor road and major highways distinction. I would think they're just roads. Minor roads, major roads. Minor roads, probably unpaved. Major roads, paved. So I'm just going to have it, maybe I'll put it in parentheses, major or unpaved minor. So those would be that element to it. Another thing, and I think part of part of the mechanical part that we could talk about is if we call something a track, we can talk about what it says. I mean, sort of like what we have here in the article. There's obviously width, which for the most part probably isn't going to come into play. I don't know how often the exact width, other than just saying like it's wide or it's narrow. Obviously, the width is going to make a difference in terms of whether you can see it or not. There was this one thing we found in the article where it said, oh, in the fall, it could get covered with leaves, so you can't find it. Obviously, if it's wider, it's going to be easier to spot because it's going to be a much more distinct clearing of just whatever the surrounding terrain is or neatening up or whatever of it versus a tiny little trail, which could be easily lost. I mean, part of the reason why trail markers are so important when you're hiking is that you just get to these parts, say in the woods, which is where I'm usually hiking, the woods, and the trail just kind of vanishes because there's just all these trees, and in some of it's usually in Massachusetts where I'm hiking in the Berkshires, so kind of wooded hills at this point, and you'll just get it when you end up in this part of the woods in which there are trees spaced all over the place, not a lot of underbrush, or even kind of no underbrush or little underbrush, and the trail just vanishes because it's just packed dirt anyway, and just vanishes into the expanse. And so you just come into this, you're following, okay, and then you have to look for that next marker, because otherwise there's about a million different directions you could go, because there's just between the trees, there's kind of packed earth or the equivalent basically everywhere, and there's nothing that really stands out saying, here's the trail. So that's when you're looking for that trail marker that's usually painted on a tree, or sometimes it's something that is staked or sort of nailed into a tree to show, okay, here's where the trail goes. But so there's that element. But in terms of width that we could probably have, like the trails are probably going to be the narrowest. Maybe we'd say, narrow, I don't know, 1 or 2 people abreast at most, which I think is pretty. Track unpaved, maybe a wagons, 1 wagon's breadth at most. And then for roads, one to 2 wagons breadth would be minor. 2 to 3, or maybe just say 1 to 2. I mean, I don't know how many roads would have more than. I mean, big avenues maybe, but I would just say 1. Maybe I'll just say 1 wagon's breadth minor, breadth 2 is major. I suppose 2 or more. If you want to get fancy with it, you can. Okay, so now we have trails, unpaved, narrow, tracks, unpaved, but wagons, and then roads. So we can say that tracks and roads can be kind of commercial. I think that's maybe that we're going to take away something. So, tracks and roads, they're going to be more or less commercial because you can get wagons in there. Now, the trails are more personal level. Not that you're just doing it for your personal thing, as hunters and foragers and other folks who are doing commerce, but they're not. It's the gathering, it's the hunting. It's not the taking stuff to market. They're not taking their stuff to market on a trail if they have more than what they're carrying. It's kind of, the main commercial byways are these tracks, which are probably leading from smaller villages and things like that. Hopefully, if they've been able to get a network of roads going, they're probably taking a track to a road or to a town. If it's one town that's a hub for a bunch of villages, maybe those villages are all connected by a track, but maybe the town is connected by a road to other towns, so on and so forth. So you can end up with kind of a fun, network. In terms of, so what's next? Okay, so we have sort of the state of it: unpaved, paved, or unpaved. Narrow, basically people width to wagon widths. There was something here. So water sources. I don't know enough. Did a lot of roads have a lot of water sources? Did they put wells maybe there would be. I think I don't know if that's what they mean. Unfortunately, there's a lot of context that's a little bit not present in the article, so I don't know what they mean. Would they mean water sources, like you don't cross any water or come near any water, or is it wells and fountains and things that because I can imagine where they could that there might be wells and things, or I would guess maybe a well, right? It probably depends upon obviously the terrain, geography, and everything else. But you probably have some. I guess maybe that's what they mean by water source, like a pool, a well. They probably place them near because you have horses and things that you want to get watered. So you want to have some sort of. I guess we could maybe we'll talk about amenities. Maybe that's a let's call them amenities. Okay, so trails have no amenities at all. Okay, so no amenities. You got to go dig out in the woods and find it. And I would say just basic amenities. And then basic amenities, minor roads. And we might need to adjust this as I don't want to keep saying that, but this is all up for adjustment. This is not the final form of anything. Basic amenities, and then what would be the opposite of basic? Not advanced. Or I guess we could use advanced, sure. Advanced amenities. Okay. And we can make a list here for, whoops. I don't know where you could put this. Just put this down here somewhere. Let's put it in the middle. Actually, you know what? Let's do this differently. We'll make it a list. Amenities. And then we've got, basic. And we can have advanced. So one thing I wanted to look up for, and I guess I'll just do it now. I don't know. I mean, I get the gist. I can understand the gist of what a caravansary is, but I want to get a little bit more of an idea. What was is that how you pronounce it? Or was it an E? Caravansary? I don't know. How did you spell it? I don't know. How do you spell it? Okay. Caravanserai. Roadside inns. I see. So a caravanserai or a caravanserai was an inn that provided lodging for travelers, merchants, and caravans. They were present throughout much of the Islamic world. I see. So it's kind of so it's definitely an Islamic thing, which makes sense because it's specifically for caravans, which my vision of a caravan goes to Silk Road stuff. Okay, let's say they supported the flow of commerce, information, and people across a network of trade routes covering Asia, North Africa, and Southeast Europe, most notably the Silk Road. Well, that makes sense. The buildings were most commonly rectangular structures with one protected entrance inside. Such a courtyard was surrounded by an array of rooms or one or more levels. In addition to lodgings for people, they often included space to accommodate horses, camels, and other pack animals, as well as storage rooms for merchandise. Okay. And we got some different names. So basically an inn, a way station. Okay. I wonder if there's what was the European? Just see if there's another version of the caravanserai. Was there? All right, go ahead. Duck, assist me. Hostel. Okay. Hostel's good. All right, I'll use hostile. All right, so basic accommodation. So let's see. So basic and advanced. Do I need 3 levels? Because I feel like minor roads. I don't know. We'll put it on advanced right now. So hostels, aka inns or caravanserai. Did I not spell that right? Caravanserai. I don't know. I wonder if I. Oh, they do know it. They do know the word. Sometimes I find that they don't know those words, but that's okay. So they are talking about minor roads, small hamlets, bridges. Yeah, I'm going to put bridges as advanced. This is going to be the other thing to keep in mind is this stuff, this amenity stuff, is going to be very dependent upon your version of the world. Obviously, Mystara is working off what Mystara is like, and so their ideas of what is available to different parts of Mystara is going to be different than my version, which is what I'm seeing. So, you'll want to come up with your own list that fits your setting. If you're in a very kind of advanced, connected, networked setting, then some of the stuff that I'm looking at as being advanced, you're going to say, oh, that's not very advanced. Like there's ends all over the place. Everything is bridged up. Whatever. I'm looking. It's like no, I'm going for something a little bit more gritty. So the roads are the big roads. The roads are not there's not as common. Kind of the sort of especially the major roads, they're not super common, and a lot of stuff is more like these tracks, maybe minor roads at best, and so they lack a lot of this stuff. Yeah, you're gonna have to go, and part of the reason why I like that is I find that I've talked about this before, but I guess I'll talk about it now. I think that not that it's a mistake, but it's a very very different vibe in a lot of the D&D games. We're not different. I think the vibe in a lot of D&D games is centered on the town. And the town has basically all the amenities available to you. So you just kind of do your stuff in town. You stay at the inn, you go to the magic store, you go to the adventurers shop, blah, blah, blah. And it's fine. But I find that by relocating the party away from these towns forces them to interact with people in a different way, interact with NPCs. If you have to go to a village and find somewhere to stay with an actual family, or you have to go to petition to the Lord for shelter in their castle, then you are forced to participate in the culture in some way, whatever that is, right? And a local lord may say, "Oh, you can stay." I think in Beckme they had a rule. Fighters of a certain level could go. I think if they became knights or whatever, they could go and they could request 3 days of shelter and food and shelter from a lord while they're traveling, kind of thing. Well, you can go do that, but you're forced to do that, and then you're forced to make decisions of, well, if we go meet the Lord, what are they going to ask of us while we're under the roof? What do we have to maybe give them? And it's not gold, right? It's not something so easy as, well, I just pay 5 silver and we got a knight. It's like, no, you're going to have to do more. And maybe the Lord will ride out and say, all right, you can stay if you joust with me, or you can stay if you do this thing, or whatever weird thing it is. Maybe they're a different alignment than you, and maybe some other things are going on, right? But you have to deal with all that. And I think that's kind of a powerful way to get folks into the game, into the fiction. Certainly could be, you could have adventuring hooks and things just from, hey, we had to get shelter at this place and now we're stuck. Or those fun tropey sort of things where the Lord sure invites you in, and then they have dinner, and there's some they have some kind of dinner in their hall, and some weirdness is like, okay, these guys are weird, or they're doing something weird, or something weird is happening to them. Like, you get all those opportunities arise because you've pushed the party away from just the the sort of gold or silver economy where it's just like, oh, you can always stay in it. It's like, no, you can't stay in it. There's no inn here. Maybe you can go find a temple or a church or something and petition them to stay there. But then they might ask you something, and you might have to make a sacrifice, or you might have to do something. And I think that just I really appreciate that feel and vibe. And so I don't want things centered on the ye old fantasy town as it's come to be, where it just has all your amenities and all your services. I want them to be fewer and far between. So when I look at this amenities list, that's my amenities list is going to reflect my desire for this kind of grittier, pushing the party thing. So I want you to only have, when you're on a major road, sure, there's hostels and or caravanseries or inns or things like that. But when you're in the hinterland, good luck with that. You're going to be trying. You're going to have to stay with people. You're going to have uh, to use or to engage with the hospitality and whatever that means in the culture. And you're going to have to deal with that, and we'll have fun. And that I think demonstrates a lot. Whereas I think when you just pay, sure, you can always do the thing, or you pay to stay at the end, and something funky happens in the end. But I don't know. I just don't like that vibe so much. Or maybe I'm just tired of that vibe. I want something different. I want a different vibe than that. But that's where, this amenities list and really all this stuff is going to be very dependent upon your setting. I'm not playing in Mystara, so the Mystara assumptions are not going to work for me. They might not work for you, or they might, or they just need to be different. So, but you should always feel free to change them up. So kind of what I'm doing here is just trying to basically look at this and say, well, one, there's kind of a simplification thing. And two, the other part is, can I take this stuff and look and say, well, this is a good kind of base and it gives me some ideas, but I need to change up the specifics because my world assumptions are not Mystara's world assumptions. And I don't know if I mentioned, I'm just drinking water. So I'm just cold. I had some ice, but the ice is melted now. Water for the working man. So that's what I got going on here. So back to these amenities. You notice that even trails have bridges, which to me is no. Trails, I mean, you find that on the the more well manicured uh, trails will have these little bridges going on, but I would say no. We're not having bridges on trails. Bridges, that's actually advanced. But I would put it basic would be fords across water. That would definitely be one. Oh yeah, when we're talking about wells, I think major roads will have wells. I don't think that would get basic either. Camping sites. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there'd be some kind of camping site. That probably works. Hey, Krister. Camping sites probably is basic. Let's see. Yeah, affordable roads is fine. No taverns. I mean, the hostels kind of work for that. Small hamlets are easily found and reach from the road. I don't know what this is. I don't know exactly what this is because this one's interesting. It's, I guess if you wanted, it's just, I think to me it's, and I remember kind of grappling with this. Not grappling, it's not difficult, but wondering kind of what it means. And when we looked at the Mystara map, everything kind of had trails. If it was a hamlet, I don't know. Maybe I didn't see a hamlet, so I'm not sure all you need is. But presumably, the major highways, I guess, are passing. I don't know, close enough. I mean, I don't know because I feel like if you have a good map and you've linked all your stuff by roads, then you don't need this because you just made the decision whether some hamlet is found and reached from the road. But I presume maybe the assumption is that if you were using a map where it wasn't listed, but your hamlet is near the road, then they can get to the road from them, which makes sense. But I don't think I need to write that down. I was gonna say, so what did I hold on a minute? I had something in my brain and then tolls. Right. So we're gonna have tolls and then maybe common patrols. Uncommon patrols. So I think tolling is something that comes up a lot. And oftentimes in fantasy games, I think it's often linked to banditry. But I think more often than not, I think I want to link it back more to the domain part of it. Is how do these domains make money? If you're not a, you may have your domain, your castle, your keep, your village, your town. That's not a major trade. It's not a major trading location. It's not a major anything. But what is it? It is on this road, and I think often what happens is someone petition the king, or the king might give it out as a reward, saying, "Oh yeah, you know what? You can toll this road because your location is not special, except for it's on the way. It's on this route between two places, and that's what gives it value." And then part of that thing is like, well, okay, if you're tolling on it, you're also probably protecting people, because no one's going to pay the toll if you can't keep them safe. That's the protection racket. They're, at least in theory, you are protecting them, and sometimes you're protecting them from yourself, but still, and they pay you, and so that's kind of the point of the toll. So I think the more tolls and stuff you have, the more the expectation is that you're going to patrol it. But obviously you're only on a track or a road or a minor road, you might not get as much tolls, and patrols are probably going to be less common. And when you're on a major road, they're more common. Though again, this is something you're going to want to adjust. Well, how common are patrols? I don't want to get into what the Pandius document was doing with like X amount of month or this or that, because those things aren't particularly meaningful to me. Well, this many times a month they're around. It's like, well, how do I figure that out? I just want something easy. I can roll dice. Well, at least we can now use those terms, common and uncommon, to determine whether we run into a patrol or not. It's at least some way to I guess I could say, is to adjust the odds of running into patrol, which we can probably make another list here for. Oops, let's get this up here. Another list. We can call it, I guess, path encounters. I'm not sure how this would work. I don't know. You see, this is going to be I'm going to have to marinate on how I want to do the encounters. Because I'm not sure how do we want to do that? I'm not sure. How do we want to figure out encounters? Do we want a road? So there's a couple things, right? Do we want? This is where you I just get in the weeds, because what is our current encounter system is going to indicate. So let's just for, because I have it right here. Or actually, I can get the PDF out. Might be easier. Where's my PDF, or what's it called? Sumatra. Hold on a minute. It's loading. Why did it do that? No. It's goofy. Sometimes Microsoft, you put you're gonna, what are you doing to me? It opened it up in the other window, but it also opened it up extremely long. So it's okay. Well, let's bring this over here. So if I open this up more, come on. Okay. Now if we go to, I gotta run it. It's two more scrolling than that. Did I go by it? Nope, I didn't. Here we go. So we got our wilderness encounter table, right? So they're using an 8-sided die with men at the bottom. So let's just say we're going to use a BX. We're going to make a BX assumption that we're just using for right now. We're using BX. So probably, if you're on a trail, maybe you subtract. See, here's the thing. You get these, all right, how do we want to, all right, maybe we, all right, do I need to let me make another thing. So let's just do a generic, because I don't think the BX won for a reason. The thing is I want to, maybe it's, I mean, do we want to say that if you're on a trail, which is the least good of them, that you're basically, it's the same as, so if we say that trailblazing just uses the default, actually, you know what, let me do this a different way again. If, let's just see some, whoops, I squeeze you, maybe easier was just increase you. There we go. Okay, so let's just do some generic encounters. All right, so if we have our generic list, we got trailblazing. Okay. And I'm just going to, let's just see if we do this a little bit different. So we have, men. I'm going to put the humanoids together. Animal, flyer, unusual, yeah, see, I would almost put insect and animal together. I don't know, not sure how to do it. Well, let's just, we'll do something like this. Or actually, no, let's, let me do this again. All right, we'll do animal, which maybe I'd merge together animal and insect. Then we'll do men. Then we'll do, and you probably want to move these around. Krister says, isn't a dragon a flyer? Well, not all dragons necessarily are flyers, but so here we can go down and look at the flyer list. I think you can get to a dragon from a flyer, but I'm not sure. No, you can't. So flyers are things like, for example, the mountains, gargoyles, griffins, harpies, hawks, hippogriffs, manticores, pegasi, and rocks. And they have dragons, because there's so many dragons, they have them on their table. I think part of it is that you're using D8s and D12s. So at a certain point, they just have to split things up to cover the full spectrum of critters. Otherwise, you just wouldn't be able to have it. I mean, technically, you could redo this so you take some of these out and do, rock, and then you could roll on a table for small, medium, and put giant in there, and then roll on dragon rather, and roll on the dragon table. They don't. I mean, that might be a way that you could definitely do these in a different way. Let's just roll, 2d6 or something, or 3d6, and whatever. There are many ways to skin the cat, but that they just split it up. But for our purposes, yeah, maybe we'll put flyers, together as a thing. So maybe, if we do, yeah, we'll do animal. One fact, let's, oh no, you know what? I don't, you do that and you do that, and that is why. Oh, no. This is what happens. We'll do insect. Though, like I said, maybe okay, here's what I'm going back for it. Let's just do, we're going to put an animal and kind of an order of, and really they're all going to have equal, because it's basically on the 8-sided, the D8, there's a little bit more of a chance of running into animals in the clearer grassland, right, than anything else. But we're just going to just do generically. So I'm just going to put one for everybody. So we got animal, men, humanoid, and then we'll have, flyer. And we'll just keep, should we keep, is there anything else I'm missing? I want to have unusual at the end. And then maybe so I guess we could have, We'll just put unusual, and we'll put dragon at the top. So that's our, if we're trailblazing, that's kind of our generic encounter list. Okay, so this is, you're not on a trail, you're just running. Now we might say, if our path encounters, or that's kind of thing. So I guess we could, if we're on a trail, maybe say roll 2 dice, take lesser value. Basically roll with disadvantage. So basically you're on a trail, you're pushing it this way. Maybe that's not accurate, but there's part of it where there's a couple things going on here. One, we can look at and say in the realism, well, in the realism, wouldn't it be more likely that since there's a trail that all this stuff would be using it? And the answer is, well, yes, that's probably true. But at the same time, we want to stack up a few reasons for folks to take, or at least attempt to take, trails. And one of them can be that they are slightly safer. Now, safer, I should even put in quotes. Yes, you're less likely to get dragons, unusual. You're less likely you're going to, I forget what the actual math is. For 2d6, we could probably go to any dice. But the fact is, what I like about the advantage-disadvantage thing for these kind of rolls is that you're not subtracting any values from the table. In other words, if I give it a modifier, like roll 1d6 minus 1, then dragons just go off the board. You can't, if you're on trail, you can't see a dragon. Whereas if I say roll 2d6, take the lesser value, you've dropped down the chance of a dragon from basically a roll of a 6, which is 16%, to basically rolling a 12 on a 2d6, which is, I don't know, 1 point whatever percent. But you can still do it. You can still be done. So, yeah, the chances can get smaller and smaller and smaller, but you might still be the fact that, well, I'm going to roll, I'm going to roll this out, but I'm going to roll this, but this value's, they're still available. Like, you might roll 3, it's hard to get an 18. It's a really low chance, but people roll 18s. So you roll, and you never know when you're going to roll triple sixes and end up with a dragon when you're on a road or something, which may be likely, maybe unlikely. I don't know. Maybe there's probably another way to do it, but I do like that when you're using that kind of advantage, disadvantage, that style, it's changing the probabilities of each result, but it's not actually adding or removing result potential. You still have 1 through 6. You're just manipulating the odds, but all those values are still in play, which you don't get when you're adding like +1, +2, +3 kind of thing. It's just different, right? So trails, and we'll say actually trails, and so let's just do this. Trails and tracks. You roll 2 dice and take the least value. Whoops. And then roads, roll 3 dice, take the lesser value. Now we could go to, let's say, I don't know if there's a, so any dice, as powerful as it is, what do I have here? I'm trying to think I forget if we wanted to just try this out. All right, output 1d6 named default. So if we calculate that, it's just going to be C 16 whatever percent. Now I think highest number of dice. All right, I think this will work, but we want to put lowest. So we go lowest, 1 of 2d6 named Advantage. So now, yeah, this looks right. 2.78, which I think is the same as if we'd rolled 12 on a 2d6, and we can see how the odds now of one go up significantly in the others. And now if we do a double disadvantage, double dog disadvantage, oops, I didn't actually copy you. Lowest one of 3d6. Oops, how can I spell today? Double disadvantage. Now we get a whopping almost 50%, and you could still roll a thing, but it's really, really low. And I think if we want to have dragons and things attacking roads, we could still get there through other means. This doesn't mean that a dragon's never, ever, ever going to show up. I mean, you'd be rolling triple sixes, but that's just on a random encounter, and it's just on the road. So if the party pissed off a dragon when they attacked their mountain and ran off the dragon, it's not like there couldn't be other reasons for the dragons to assault the party. But I feel like if it's a major road without special circumstances, probably dragons aren't assaulting the thing on a daily basis. Because otherwise, you have to be able to maintain the road. So one way or another, they put the road somewhere, and it's not. So I think that works. But I do think what I think I want to do is I'm just going to print screen this. And I'm just going to dump it in here somewhere so we can maybe. No, you're not going to paste. There you go. Just so we can maybe reference it a bit. So I think what we want is maybe to switch up men and animals. Oops. So what I want to do is put men on 1 and have animal be on 2. This way, and men can be whatever, In BX terms, they literally mean men, but if you're running a Forgotten Realms type thing where there are lots of different species that are all hanging out in the great cantina scene, then that can include humanoids or whatever. But I think that maybe makes sense. So the you get on you're trailblazing, and you basically have anything can happen, which I think is fine. You could there can be additional modifiers for trailblazing, but this is really just your default, right, generic one. So you would insert your thing that you want. But I think, presuming whatever dice system you're using, you put your men at the bottom of that list, or you could, if you wanted to roll with advantage and flip it and roll the highest one, you want your men to show up on one of the edges. Your sort of your townsfolk and your citizenry type thing, settled folks. You want to put them at one extreme, and then you can use this advantage or disadvantage to then push results upwards. So now, default trailblazing, yeah, anything could happen and probably will. Oh, we're on a trail or a minor road. Yeah, you're probably going to get people, which makes sense. Oh, you're on a major, you're on a major road. Okay, now it's almost 50% of the time, almost, you're going to get people, which makes sense. All right. Now we can go to where you can kind of look at, I'm just going to pull one of these. Where's men? So we look at the men. We could probably we could probably moderate this list too. So if we make I guess let's move this over, drop this down some more. If we take this men encounter, let's see, we've got brigands, bandits, adventurers. So maybe we'd want to put gosh. I think everything only shows up once, right? So we have brigands and bandits. I don't know if we need both. I know they're slightly different, but I feel like we can express that in without having to take up 2 slots. Adventurers and individual classed people, I feel like we can put that as 1 slot. Also, we have merchants comes up twice, nobles come up once. So I'm going to just put folk down at the bottom. Whoops. Oh, I see. Folk. Then we can put, maybe criminal. Then we can put adventurers. Maybe put travelers down here. Travelers, criminals, adventurers. Is there anything? What kind of other things are we getting here? Oh, buccaneers. All right, so we've got brigands and bandits, adventurers, merchants, berserkers. What would that be? Would a berserker be an adventurer type? Maybe, or a criminal? Is a berserker technically a criminal? Just out of curiosity, what does they berserker? Berserkers are simply fighters who go mad in battle. Okay, yes, so that's just a fighter, right? It's they're 1+1 hit die, so they're probably a level 1 fighter in actuality, or with a special talent, I guess, quote unquote talent. Trader, I would put that as a folk. Oh, I guess we'll do merchants. Whoops. So we have folk, merchants, travelers, criminals, adventurers, and then maybe unusual. Do we want to put it on unusual in here? Does that make sense? And then we can basically just do the same thing. So we can look at it and say, okay, if you're on a trail, or your trail, well, I mean, if you're trailblazing at men, you can get any number of these. I mean, I might need to put merchants. Maybe you'd roll with advantage if you're trailblazing, so you're not going to tend to get merchants. I mean, maybe they're lost. Maybe they're, if you find a merchant that's on this trail, you might be wondering, like, or trailblazing, it's like, how did that come up? But yeah, it could happen, right? It could happen. I'm not gonna say it can't happen. However, if you're as you're on trails and tracks, right, and then roads, you're going to start to scale down so that when you get to on a road, we come back here, you're probably going to get folk coming and going, doing their thing almost 50% of the time. Merchants, maybe, what is that, 30%? Yeah, something like that. So 28%, almost 30% merchants, 20% travelers, so on and so forth. Not so much adventures, but so there you go. There you have it. What is if we roll with advantage, what would that look like? What would advantage look like on, actually, it's maybe easier to grab that. What does advantage on one of these look like out of curiosity? I know it's just splitting up. So on advantage, you get the unusual one. That's maybe too much. So I'll say we're trailblazing, maybe roll and with advantage. But I think that might skew it too much towards the back end. What if we did... Oh, I guess I'll just put it as another one. Call it median. I don't know if this even works. Does it work? It might not. I don't want highest. I want the middle. Oh, it is. It's just called middle. Oh, that makes sense. Because I think if you use middle, that would actually get us something good. Did I say middle one? Oh, middle one. Middle one of 3d6. Thank you. So this one, you get the 3 and 4. 2 and 5 bump up a bit. 3 and 4 get much better. So if we go back and we look here, what is our 3 and 4? Humanoids and flyers. I kind of want animals. Interesting. Maybe does humanoid need to go here, and then we go animal, flyer, 3 and 4. How would that? Might need to think about that, because I do. Let me replace my image here. I do like that idea, but it does mean tweaking things a beat. Let's take another screenshot. I can make it narrow. I don't need a whole lot of space. Yeah, so that's interesting. But it does mean, unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but it means that if I were to flip this around, yeah, I'll have to play. It'd be something to play around the numbers. I think it would be kind of fun to play around. I like the idea of maybe doing that median for, like, we take our super generic one, and then if you're trailblazing, you get that median value, which is the two ends are reduced, but the middle gets extended, odds increase, and then you have the advantage disadvantage, or this is the double disadvantage, but then the advantage disadvantage favor the outer bits. So you could probably there probably is some way we can configure these numbers so that you can get interesting results and say for one way or the other. Like, hey, roll when you're here, roll for advantage. When you're there, do whatever. If not, roll in the middle. Intrigued I am, but we'll have to see. We will have to see. I'm trying to think if there's anything offhand. So we've got our 3 levels of paths. Trails, unpaved, narrow, no amenities. Track, also unpaved, and I would also say that, 1 wagon's breadth at most, so basically passable by vehicle. Trails are impassable by vehicle. And obviously, roads are passable by vehicle. So let me just summarize here, because I'm about to wrap it up. 3 types of paths: trails, tracks, and roads. Trails are unpaved, narrow, no amenities, impassable by vehicle. Tracks are also unpaved, but they're wider. They can up to a wagon, 1 wagon ride. They have basic amenities, and they are passable by vehicles. And then roads are could be paved or unpaved. Everything else is unpaved. They're 1 wagon's breadth wide in case of a minor road. A major road can be 2 or more wagons breadth wides. Minor roads have basic amenities. Major roads have advanced amenities. And of course, they're passable by vehicles. What are these amenities? Right now, we've got basic, including fording points across water, camping sites, I guess tolls. We'll call them minor tolls. Minor tolls and uncommon patrols. Advanced are, oh, I did that by accident. Advanced are, sorry, hostels, bridges, wells, major tolls, and more common patrols. Then we did take just a gander at figuring out how this stuff works. How do these different paths work with our encounters? So, I took the BX and tweaked it to make it a D6 table of different types. So we had men, animals, humanoids, flyers, unusual dragon. That's basically taking the encounter stuff. We would have to roll on subsequent tables. Insects would probably get rolled into animals. It might be that we didn't have to roll dragon into flyer or unusual. If there was another category we wanted to add, we might need to roll something else in there or split out and make it a bigger table. Obviously, BX has an 8 D8 table. I'm using D6, but they also repeat a couple of values. So then we talked about on trails and tracks, maybe you roll 2 and basically roll with disadvantage to get the lower one, and then roads, you might roll on 3 and take the lesser value to kind of do a super disadvantage. But now I'm thinking maybe we'll do something where you look at the maybe one rolls with advantage and one rolls with disadvantage so that they can kind of go towards both ends. I'm not sure what that would be. We'd have to play around with where these numbers are, or it could be that you're going to roll and take the median number, that we put the odds and ends on the extremes and maybe we put men in the middle. And just while I'm thinking about it, what if we did a double, like a super median, where we did kind of take the middle one of 46? What do you get? So that one's even interesting because you get a little bit of separation there. So when you roll a median of 46, 4 ends up being favored slightly over 5 and more than the 3. So when you roll to get the median, 3 and 4 have the same odds. And then 5 is less. Though when you roll 4 dice, take the median, is it something because we're rolling an even number of dice as opposed to an odd number of dice? In any case, 4 jumps up, 5 jumps up, 3 jumps up less, 6 jumps up a bit, 1 and 2 go down. I'm just curious. We call that super median, and then we'll do one more out of 5 dice. Super duper median. Does that even the things out again? It does. Interesting. So I'm not expert enough on the maths to know why this is the case, but when you're using odd numbers of dice, it evens out so you probably if we want to keep the symmetry, which I would imagine we would want to, you probably want to use odd numbers of dice when using the median and not even numbers of dice. So in that case, 3 and 4 maintain. 5, actually drops down a bit. 2 and 5 drop down a bit, and then 1 and 6 also drop down. So pretty interesting, as the middle values will get more pronounced odds at the expense of the ones further out to the sides. So we could probably do some cool stuff with that. Have to fiddle around with that. But I wanted to do this while I was just kind of fresh in mind, looking at the stuff with roads and trails and whatnot. I think there's fruitful stuff here, is my impression, or at least my feeling of it, because like I said, you take these things and they exist in the fiction, as in, you could tell the party, or have someone tell them, there's a trail, or you can have it on a map. It could be a player facing map or GM facing map. There's a trail. There's a track. There's a road. But it also has a mechanical piece to it that can be known. It's up to you whether the players know about these things or not. I mean, I imagine, at least in terms of the basic features, that they should know and would know that, a trail is better than nothing. A track is better than a trail. A road is better than a track. That kind of thing. And we can come up with these basic mechanics, and then whenever we want to specify what kind of path it is, we just have to say it's a track, or it's a trail, or it's a minor road or a major road. And then we can just look at our generic mechanic, and we're done. But it adds a lot of, I guess it can punch above its weight in terms of what are we adding to it? Well, not much in terms of what we have to present out or write in our notes. It's just a word, and we'd have to use a word anyway. Is there a trail there, or what is it? It's a trail, it's a track, it's a road. Okay, that's easy enough. But by specifying it that way, and by giving the word itself a specificity, making it kind of a term or a keyword or a trait or whatever it is, we can then utilize it in different mechanics, like our wandering creature checks, or random encounters, whatever you want to call it, we can use and say, oh, they're on a road. That means something in terms of that role we're making, or oh, they're on a trail, or oh, they're just trailblazing, and so whatever. So I'll keep fiddling away, messing around with this. Hope this was interesting, maybe, or useful, or just thought-provoking. I don't know. Give you some ideas. Anywho, that's all I got, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, everybody, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.